Welcome back to Craftcast, the Freemasons podcast. I'm James, and I'm joined as always in the studio by
Sean
and Stephen.
Brethren, good to be with you. How are we all today?
Well, I'd like to say very well, thank you. We have here at Freemasons Hall a box of UJelly branded jelly beans, and before I left the house today, I hadn't had the chance to have some breakfast, so I have engorged myself on 3 packets of UJelly branded jelly beans. They're only small packets, Stephen, no to vomit.
I did have some of the UJelly branded jelly beans the other day, and they were exceptional.
Thank you, James.
And I did eat about 4 packets of them. So I feel your pain.
Thank you.
I had a good 8 packets of crisps the other day.
8 packets of crisps.
I just want to say again, typical student.
Typical student. How many pot noodles have you had in the last week?
I actually don't like pot noodles.
No one likes
Believe it or
pot
not.
noodles. They still have to eat
No,
them,
I know,
though.
but I don't. It's quite a novel day. Normally, I'm fairly healthy with what I eat because of my fencing and stuff. I have to be pretty sensible.
And you would have heard the voice of today's... Well, he's not a guest. That would be an unfair description. The chap sat on
Yeah, we don't like him that much.
No, the brother sat on my left-hand side is a member of the UJelly comms team, and I'm, of course, talking about Shay Aziz. Shay, how are you?
I'm good, Sean. How about you?
Yeah, not bad. But thank you for joining us. We're going to have you on intermittently, aren't we? To clarify, Shay is UJelly's social media exec, so everything that you see going up on social media has come from the fingertips.
Blame him
Of Shay Aziz.
All the typos are mine.
That is true. But Shay, how are you?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here. This has been a project I've been looking forward to seeing realized for a very long time, and it's good to just be in the studio with you guys and talking about Freemasonry, because Lord knows we don't do that enough.
And you are a Freemason in...
Yeah, so I'm a Somerset Freemason. I joined Lodge of Honor number 379 in November 2019. Now I'm a member of more units than I care to admit.
Oh, go on.
Going to be 4
Go on,
craft
admit it.
lodges, 2 chapters, and I'm going into Mark next month.
Exciting.
It's amazing how quickly it creeps up on you, I think.
What's that? That being a member of many
Units. It can creep up on you. And Shay, you work at United Grand Lodge of England.
Yeah.
You were initiated prior to coming to work here. What led you on the journey from being a candidate, being a new Mason, to eventually wanting to spend Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, working at Freemasons Hall?
It was a series of events. I became a Freemason the same way a lot of millennials became Freemasons. I read a Dan Brown book. And I was like, this...
Da Vinci Code.
Yes,
Yeah.
That's the one. So I looked into the book. I was like, okay, Freemasons can't be real. Turns out they're real. Then
It's a good book.
tried looking into Freemasons and saw a lot of stuff about Freemasons that wasn't real. Eventually, you get to the nitty-gritty of it, which is it's brotherhood. It's based on service to oneself, one's community, all that stuff. And that was something that really struck a chord with me. Belonging to something bigger than yourself for the greater good. So that's how I became a Freemason. Once I got into Freemasonry, very quickly social media became the cornerstone of what it is we do. And if you don't have a social media brand or a significant social media presence, you're kind of a step behind everyone else in this day and age. So the province of Somerset asked me to be the social media executive during the COVID lockdown. And from there, I started dipping my toe deeper and deeper into Masonic social media in general. And then UJLE put up a job advert for someone to...
That was fairly recent as well, wasn't it?
That was
From memory?
June or July, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
Summer, wasn't it?
I thought I saw that advert a couple of months ago, so yeah.
During the summer, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Brilliant. And it's no coincidence, Shay, is it, that you're here? Because actually the reason that you're here is to do with the topic of today's episode of Craftcast, which is Freemasonry and social media.
Though, of course, we'd love having you on anyway.
Well, yeah. And that won't be, you won't be invited on only when we're talking about that, Shay. Obviously, you bring much more to the table than that. But Masonic social media. So in 2017, when I originally joined UJelly, that was my main job. Tweeting.
I didn't know that.
Yes, posting about social media on Facebook. And Instagram, we launched Instagram within the first few months. That was one of my things that I wanted to do in my interview. And then I handed on the baton to first Marta and now to Mr. Aziz. And how are you finding it, Shay?
Oh, it's wonderful. I mean, by being on
That
like,
could
social
not have
media
sounded
puts
less convincing if you tried.
I mean, you do see the ugliness of the internet
Well, yeah.
right in front of your eyes at 9 a.m. every day, pretty
Yeah.
much. It's an unavoidable fact of Masonic social media as you run into all the anti-Masonic fellows on social media.
I imagine you'd find that in any social media job, right? Like dealing with comments like this, people will find a way of turning something really positive into a negative no matter what.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And what social media platforms is the United Grand Lodge of England on?
So currently we have a presence on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube.
And do you manage all of those?
Yeah, I handle most of the pages. I monitor the comments, upload the materials, make sure everything's up to date, make sure there's no typos.
So, but because like you don't produce all of the content, but do you produce any content, or is it all purely management from your point of view?
No, most of the content we put out is sent to us by the provinces or the districts or the members or the executives. We will put out our own stuff occasionally if there's news from the from United Grand Lodge of England to the members. For example, during the Queen's passing, we were putting out a lot of our own content for the members.
Or like a cool new podcast.
Exactly like a cool new podcast. When are we starting that, by the way?
Monday.
And I was just curious about all these different pages that you manage, and Stephen's referenced already that a lot of the content is given to you. Do you have success, or is it a challenge for the provinces and districts to give you sufficient content to post on the pages?
We don't lack sufficient content, but the challenge
good
with
content, maybe.
No, I mean it's not. I wouldn't even hesitate to call it good. The term I'd use is competitive. Okay. Social media is extremely competitive. We're not just competing, for the attention of members for the attention of members. We're trying to get non-members included in our sphere. We're trying to get our content to appeal to everyone, Freemasons, their families, their friends, and people who are not even considering to be Freemasons. So being competitive and making sure we're on the cutting edge and all our content is informative and engaging. But yeah, that's the biggest challenge.
Not that I can say that I have a massive understanding of sort of the theory behind social media, but I imagine with brands and things, often the competition comes from sort of similar brands. So, like for example, other like Hollister might have a clothing brand that they sort of fight against on social media, for want of a better phrase. Mm-hmm. Whereas we don't really have something. I guess we sort of dominate the market in that sense. But would you maybe say that your competition is then sort of misinformation instead?
Yeah.
Instead of sort of a competitive other brand that says the same thing? It's actually sort of worse than that, because they're just not giving the right message and they're giving this misinformation.
No, you hit the nail on the head perfectly with that. You said it perfectly. We're not competing against anyone else. We are the Freemasons. There's it's not like this is a niche market, but the problem is misinformation, fake news, and it's prevalent on social media. Social media isn't the cause of this. It's been around for hundreds of years, thousands of years, and but no, we every day we have to make sure that the content we're putting out not only shines the light on our organization, but also dispels a lot of the misinformation on the internet.
Yeah.
It seems to me that the people that you see on social media who claim to be experts in Freemasonry, it's fascinating to me how so few of them are actually experts, or added to that, even members.
Yep. The common phrase you'll see on our channels is, "Oh, I'm not a Freemason, but I know this, and if you don't know this, you're just not high enough to know this." It's like, but then how do you? Anyways, we can't go down that rabbit hole. It's just
they read it on YouTube,
or Reddit,
or they read it on Reddit. Absolutely.
And when we think about social media, of course, in 2022, I can imagine that's quite an important aspect of what we do from Freemasons Hall. from your point of view on the other side of it, if you like, how important is social media and social media campaigns and what we put out into the public to keep UGLE relevant, to keep members engaged, to keep people informed about what we're doing compared to maybe where we were 10 or 15 years ago?
Oh, it's absolutely vital. I mean, I can't speak to what we were doing 15 years ago because I wasn't a member 15 years ago, but the overall trend of today is if you don't have a significant social media presence, you don't exist. Back in the old days, you know, you had a plethora of advertising opportunities. You could put copy in a newspaper or magazine, ads on a TV, hire planes to write messages in the sky. People are glued to their phones today, though. So you can do all of that and the message won't get through.
There needs to be a call to action, kind of like there's somewhere for them to go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it needs to be easier than ever before. If you just put a number up or an email address and expect people to contact that email address, you're not going to get there. But if you have a link that they can click on that takes them straight to a contact form submission, they're more likely to fill the form out.
Sort of removing barriers to their...
Absolutely.
It's the same as that whole... I think it's on a documentary about Facebook about how they did a lot of research into how to keep people on their app. It's like they took off the scrolling from like their video side to their app. That you don't have to scroll anymore just because it keeps people on, because that extra barrier for scrolling takes people off the app. I guess it's the same sort of concept that you don't want people to just go, yeah, I'll do that later, or I can't be bothered with that, or whatever. And I was going to ask, so obviously United Grand Lodge of England, that's where sort of Freemasonry in the modern world sort of originates from, in terms of, you know, the first Grand Lodge and etc. Therefore, it would sort of follow that we're doing, I would assume, but I don't know, so this is what I'm asking, are we doing sort of the most innovative stuff, the sort of the first stuff that's really connecting social media and Freemasonry in the world, or are there other Grand Lodges that are doing the same? Do you think they'll follow?
I won't be so immodest just to say that the UGLE is the only social media savvy Grand Lodge. Obviously, there's a North America and Europe. You see a lot of Grand Lodges that are now making the foray into social media and just having a more active online presence. UGLE is definitely on the frontier of it. We're definitely going where no Mason has gone before in terms of that. And I mean, like take for example this very thing we're doing right now, a Masonic podcast. It's not a new idea, but what we're bringing to it and how we're doing it is fresh and new and hopefully engaging.
Yeah.
Well, I would add to that. Obviously, we've had the National Digital Marketing Campaign, which we are, as this is being recorded, in the midst of the second one. So the first year, we had just about 9,000 inquiries from people coming through on social media, and that's using purely paid social media advertising on Facebook. This year, we're seeing huge increases into, I'm talking increases of 70% up on last year in terms of the number of inquiries and the number of leads coming through. So broken down into two, Stephen is a face of one of these adverts, as I'm sure he wants to remind. Gleeful look on his face, stroking his chin like he's David
I wonder
Gandy.
why there's a 70% increase.
The David Gandy of Freemasonry. But no, generally, that was a bit of a step into the unknown for us, because we thought that the audience was there. We know, for example, that as an organisation, there are people that we are never going to be their cup of tea, and that is fine.
I mean, that's okay. I mean, Freemasonry isn't for everyone, is it?
It's not for everyone.
And you don't want it to be for that's sort of what makes it unique. But
exactly. And the positive about that particular form of using social media is that you can target people that we think would be interested, but maybe don't know, for example, how easy it is to join, or don't know the mechanism through which to join. So, for example, I would make an assumption that if you are interested in history, you may well be interested in Freemasonry. It may then naturally follow that the historic element of Freemasonry, or the nature of the people who have been Freemasons, a la Churchill, Duke of Wellington, those sorts of people, may well, as it did with me, attract them into finding out what this is. Yeah. So, again, it's an assumption, but we think that if those people are interested in those sorts of things, it would naturally follow that Freemasonry offers them something. So we can target those exact people. You know, Facebook allows us to go in and reach that audience of people, and we've never, ever, ever had that access to those people before in the history of this organisation.
I think it's more unique contact points as well, isn't it? Because if we think about the past, and maybe even the recent past, when I first joined in 2009, typically you would either have to write a letter or an email, or more than not, you would have to know somebody who was a Freemason to then talk to and propose you into their lodge. And I guess through the National Digital Marketing Campaign, through the work that Shay's doing with the social media team, it gives the public, people that may be interested in Freemasonry, a direct point of contact into Freemasonry.
It's exactly that. And what we always say is, you know, when you get these comments from people, that when someone says to me, you know, I mean, God, if I had £1 for every time someone had said to me, oh, you know, they thought Freemasonry was this. I thought this was what Freemasonry was. Well, okay, you were wrong. But what I always say to them, we had this at Open House London. Someone came up to me and sort of said, used the S word, which I hate, secret. You know, which is banned from the corridors of the comms department at UGLE, because, you know, and this is you know, what we hate that phrase. We're not a secret society. We're a society with secret. I'm sorry, that it's just wrong. But what the point I'm making is that someone came up to me at Open House London and they said, "Hang on a minute, you know, what aren't you telling us?" or something. And I said, "You're literally stood. You're literally stood in our headquarters." I said, if you wanted to, you could go onto our Facebook feed, you could go onto our Twitter feed, you could look us up on Instagram, watch a video about us on YouTube. Yeah. How much more open can we possibly be?
Yeah.
The doors were literally open that day.
The clue is in the name, Open House, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
what sort of even just ordinary corporation would have their headquarters just open to go and see? How frequent is that you get?
I mean, and it's open 6 days a week, Steve.
Get an organisation of that size. Just go, come have a look. Feel free.
6 days a week.
Yeah.
It's pretty unique, actually. I think that we just invite the public generally to come and use the free cafe bar, which is open for anybody.
Yeah.
The great tours around the Museum of Freemasonry. And for the non-Masonic listeners who are with us today, please do come down and see us on Great Queen Street.
Yes.
The cafe and bar is open to the public from 9:30 a.m. The Museum of Freemasonry offers free tours where you can see some of the history of this building and of Freemasonry. Please do come down and engage with us because, as Sean says, it is not a secret society. Shay, I was going to ask you about the measure of success in social media. So we've talked about engaging with the public and putting out the truth about Freemasonry. From your point of view, how do you measure the success of what you do or the success of a post? What does that look like?
Depends on the nature of the post. Usually we look for primarily engagement. Is this post reaching the people, and are they interacting with it in the way that we want them to? Are they clicking on the links? Are they viewing the photographs? That's primarily how we would do that. And then secondarily, we also follow our follower growth and our follower size, basically, the ups and the downs. We track that stuff bi-weekly and monthly to make sure if we're putting out good stuff, you'll tend to see our profile, our follower count increase. You'll also see our engagement rate increase. You'll also see our shares and likes increase. If we're not putting out good stuff, you'll see that rate suddenly plummet, and then we adjust.
Well, I was going to say, I think what you were saying before about it's not necessarily aimed at, not everyone's going to want to join. It's not for everyone. But I think still campaigns like that are still useful even to that non-interested Masonic audience. Yeah. Because, and I say this a lot about the university scheme, is you never really know how successful you are in that sense. You never really know how much of an impact you're having, because with the university scheme, we'll have a freshers fair and you could speak to someone, they make no effort to get in contact after that. They're not interested. They just go, not for me.
Yeah.
But they've learned something maybe from talking to someone. 20, 30 years' time, they could have a son who is 17, 18, goes to university, goes to a freshers fair, speaks to someone, and they go, oh, Mum, Dad, I saw this. I spoke to someone about this. What do you think? And instead of going, actually, this is rubbish, like, go away, don't go anywhere near them, they go, yeah, I remember speaking to someone about that. Why didn't you go find out?
Planting the seeds.
Yeah. And it's just about that awareness, making that, and we sending the right message.
Yeah, we know, Stephen, for example, with the National Digital Marketing Campaign, I mean, obviously our ambition with that is to attract the right people into the organisation. Yes, that goes without saying. But improving public perception and normalising the word Freemasonry is another big part of it. So we know, for example, yes, we pulled in 9,000 inquiries into the organisation, just over 3,300 leads. So those are people going forward to membership teams with the ambition of becoming Freemasons. We also know that over 3 million people were exposed to that advert on Facebook. 3 million people who had seen pictures of Stephen Watley's face
God help them
on their social media channels. But all joking aside,
comments of concern.
all joking aside, you know, that is access to the organisation that they've never ever had before, and that they're seeing about Freemasonry. And the hope is that what naturally follows on from that is that the next time they talk about Freemasonry or they hear about us, their immediate reaction isn't a negative one, which it has been in the past, even for those people that aren't inherently against what we are as an organisation.
Yeah, Shay, they see my picture and they're like, is he okay?
Literally.
So Shay, we've talked about kind of the comms that come from the centre, from Grand Lodge directly. If we go sort of down level into the provinces and then to the individual members, we know that some members maybe set up a Twitter page or a Facebook page for their lodge or for their province or for themselves personally to communicate with other Freemasons. And that can be a little bit of grey waters about what is appropriate to post, what's not appropriate to post. Do we have any sort of guidelines that members can use and that provinces can use to support them with that?
That's an excellent question. UGLE has actually put out a social media toolkit, which you can access through the Brand Center. If you don't have access to the Brand Center, your provincial communications or membership officer can send it to you. And basically, the social media toolkit spells out all the do's and don'ts of social media. And it very simply and straightforwardly tells you how to and what to do. And it gives you very useful things like definitions of terms so you can use those to explain to members who are maybe not as familiar with social media how it's working, what's going on. One thing because I'm a Somerset Freemason, one thing we like to do in Somerset is make sure members who don't have access to social media still have access to all the posts that are there. So one thing we do is we make sure everything that goes out on social media also goes out in email blast, goes out in the newsletter, it's posted on the website. You don't need to be on social media to be getting all the news. So long as you're on one of the mailing list, email list, social media, you will get it somehow, somewhere.
I think as well, Shay, to add to that, I think with my Deputy Director of Comms hat on, I would very, very much encourage any Freemason listening to this to track down the UGLE social media policy, because it does exist. And that policy is directly from the Board of General Purposes, which is the board that governs Freemasonry on a day-to-day basis. And it sets out in plain English what, as a Freemason, you can and cannot do on social media. Now, to be absolutely clear, no one is saying that as a Freemason you can't have social media. What we are asking you to do is separate your personal stuff from your Masonic stuff. For example, I have on Twitter a Masonic social media account where I talk about where I'm going, what I've been doing in my capacity as Deputy Director of Comms. What I also have is a private Twitter account which I hide, I lock it. I limit the amount of people that can see what I'm doing, and it's there that I talk about the other stuff that I'm interested in, the stuff that perhaps as Freemasons we wouldn't otherwise talk about, and. Just as if we were sat in a lodge room, we wouldn't sit and talk about politics. We wouldn't sit and talk about religion. We do not talk about the things within society that can be divisive. And that exact thing also applies to our behaviour on social media. And look, these are interesting times in which we live, and it's difficult and often tempting, if something's riled you up or you feel frustrated about something, to immediately post and want to share your view on it. What I would really encourage you to do, if you're a Freemason listening to this who identifies yourself as a Freemason on social media, is just think twice about that and just think, right, where can I put this? Where am I not going to? Because what does happen, and I've seen it happen, is that naturally if someone comes out who's identified themselves as a Freemason, they come out and they make political comments or something on social media. I've then seen people say, is that what all Freemasons think? Is that the view of the organisation? And that's obviously absolutely not the case. So we just have to be really careful. And as I say, you can find that on the UGLE website. You can find it, again, your province will have a copy of it. Get in touch with us at Grand Lodge. We can give you a copy of it. And in fact, we'll share it again in First Rising, which is our all-member newsletter, just to make sure that you have it. But please do read it, because it is necessary, and it does impact a lot of us now.
I think, in general, I think that touches on, you see it a lot in Gibraltar, because it's such a small place.
Yes. Yeah.
Everyone knows everyone. And so I think it really quite exemplifies that, not just with Freemasonry, but if you are, if you have a specific interest outside of work, people see you as a representative of that interest.
Absolutely.
I do fencing. People see, and if they don't know many fencers, because it's not sort of a massively popular sport, then they sort of assume, or a chess player, they just go, well, that's what all chess players are like, or all fencers are like. And that's sort of similar to Freemasonry in that sense. And especially in Gibraltar, you see that because everyone knows everyone. Yeah. You have to sort of, even though you're just a member, for in inverted commas, not sort of a very high up member, again in inverted commas, you're still a representative of what you're interested in. Yeah. And so I guess that's sort of what you're getting at there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things we probably would encourage actually for members to do is to think about promoting the good that Freemasonry does through their social media pages, whether that be, charitable works or donating of time or money to specific causes. I know that the MCF does a huge amount of work through its Twitter and Facebook pages, and also through the Grand Lodge page, to promote to the public and also to the membership where these funds go, the causes that we support, the difference that we make in people's lives. And that's all great stuff to demonstrate to the public the truth behind Freemasonry and what we're actually about as an organisation.
Well said.
Oh, very well said. And just to follow up on that, one thing I genuinely love seeing come into my inbox is stories about Freemasons donating checks to a local initiative, or national charity, or maybe the specific Masters relief chest for the year. All those things are great, because they do exactly, they show the tangible effects that Freemasons can have on their community. The one thing I would love if members could do is, instead of taking a photograph of giving the check from one brother to another in the lodge room in regalia, it might be more, like we were talking about earlier about competitiveness on social media, it might be more competitive and more engaging if that picture were taken outside of the lodge room, giving it to the hospital or the charity representatives it's going to.
Or even the impact, the money at work. Let's, if a lodge has given £1,000 to buy a few defibrillators for a local rugby club, I'm not talking about getting a photo of the guy being, having his I'm not talking about that, but let's see a photo of it on with the guys around it.
Sean's all for that graphic content.
Yeah, I know, right? If the money's gone into biotechnology for, to help, with, like a lot of the work that Lifelights does, let's see the residents, or the young children, let's see them using it and enjoying it. I mean, that's the story.
Absolutely.
The story isn't XYZ Lodge has given £100 check to this charity. The story is, how has that £100 helped the lives of the people in the,
Absolutely.
Well, with my comms officer hat on, I've seen from the sort of the two major Masonic charities we have in Gibraltar, with the TLC, the Teddies for Love and Care, and with the Widow's Sons. Both of them, the most sort of the best stuff that I've had content-wise from them has been that, like you say, sort of out in the community. At Easter, the Widow's Sons gave Easter eggs to all the local some of the local schools, and some of the like special needs school. They went there and did like a little presentation and spoke to some of the children there. And and with the TLC, when you had MCFs and TLCs, Red Teddy on tour,
yes,
which was a very successful campaign. We had I'm lucky in the sense that I've got easy access, because my father is the founder of TLC Gibraltar, but he produced sort of a a big like almost a comic reel, and in that did it from the Teddy's point of view, and went, oh, I'm here now and I'm doing this, and pictures with the governor, so the Queen's representative, or now the King's representative in Gibraltar, with the hospital workers there, with the nurses and things, and that really did well in the community. So people really liked that.
Yeah, and I think the charity aspect certainly is one thing, but we also need to get better, and this is us as well, actually. UJLE need to get better at showing it's not just the charity, that's not just what Freemasons do, that's not just what Freemasonry is. Mm-hmm. Freemasonry is about our heritage. Freemasonry is about having fun, socialising with friends, meeting like-minded people. You know, we have so much more. Yes, charity is a huge aspect of what we do as an organisation, but it's certainly not the only one. And what we need to do as an organisation is demonstrate all of those other things, you know, the enjoyment of going along to a lodge meeting and meeting all your mates and having a laugh, and enjoying a bit of well-delivered, you know, ceremony. That's key. In
an earlier episode when we spoke to the programme master, I mentioned a post that actually got all the way to South Sudan.
Yes, exactly that, yeah.
And that post was actually a picture of some very senior, and I mean, like, including our district grand master, probably some of the most senior Masons in Gibraltar, in a coach, all having a laugh, with their thumbs up, making silly faces at the camera. Yeah. And we posted that, obviously with their permission, and everyone loved that, because it just showed their you know, and you see, even, you know, when we spoke to the programme master, he's a really nice guy, and past the fact that he's programme master, you can talk to him as a person.
Sure.
And showing that side of it as well, I think, rather than just sort of, it can come across, if we're not careful, as sort of stuffy, if that makes sense. So, like, it's for older people, it's not really a fun thing where you can just make jokes and whatever. Whereas showing what it really is about, that you really can just enjoy yourself, I think is an important part of social media.
Absolutely.
Shay, thank you so much for coming on to the Craftcast, the Freemasons podcast. It's been wonderful to have you, and I hope that those listening who are Freemasons have learnt something about social media and what we do here at United Grand Lodge. And if you're not a Freemason, go and follow us. UGLE_Grand Lodge on Twitter, United Grand Lodge of England on Facebook, and on Instagram.
Do it, please.
Don't follow the fake accounts, we're verified.
Verified accounts only. But Shay, thank you so much for coming to see us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Please come back as well. I mean, you're literally only upstairs, so there's literally no excuse.
Oh, well, twist my arm, don't you?
when we get bored and run out of ideas, we're gonna come grab you.
I still think we should have a session where we sit down and read out mean Masonic tweets.
Who's coming?
Coming. Shay, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll see you all soon.